Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar Nikishin episode, Ray. He is signed. He is coming to North Carolina. Actually, hopefully he's coming to Ottawa first. But
that would be nice.
It would. Hopefully, Nick from Canes Prospects will be able to join us. He had plans this weekend, but had said, hey, if he's available, he'll hop on with us. So, knock on wood, hopefully we can get Nick back to talk Nikishin. We will talk about him some as well, but he's signed. He has a 2-year ELC. He's going to be making $832,000 for the next 2 years, $185,000 signing bonus. A lot of people seem concerned about that third year, which he was too old for. And they're worried about, well, burning, if he plays this year, he burns a year. I'm just here to say the Canes know that. It's very common, especially for guys coming out of college now. You burn in ELC, just kind of a friendly thing, right? We're going to commit to you. We want you to commit to us. That gets them to a year quicker. He will still be a restricted free agent. He will not be eligible for an offer sheet at the end of this contract. So all these things are good because the guys coming from the KHL, partially it's to play against the best players in the world, partially it's to get paid. We're going to do both of those things for him. So how are you feeling, sir?
I'm feeling great. And as to that point specifically, everyone remember Seth Jarvis. Remember him because everyone wondered in those first 8 games if he was going to be able to stick around and, worried about contracts and stuff like that. And he forced the team to keep him up there because of how good he is. And how did that turn out?
Right.
I mean, it turned out great. So the same sort of thing we can look for here. And I'll tell you, Nikishin is getting more hype than Seth Jarvis ever did. I mean, and we've been waiting for him a long time. And Seth had to prove himself, and everyone loves him. Nikishin, I think, can do the same. He can absolutely do the same. But we are going to get to all of that. And like I said, we are holding off. There's lots of things to talk about. And let's start with the last 2 games. The 4-game road trip, I mean, only 1 point out of it against the Caps. And we don't normally share a lot of our conversations during games, Brad.
Not verbatim, no.
No, we can't do them verbatim. But there was one play in particular that made it so I didn't even care if we won the game or not. Okay. Now, first things first. True class, Rod making sure that the team was out there for Ovechkin's ceremony to start the game. And they went out and shook his hands. You know what I mean? Like, that was impressive. I was like, you know what? That's classy. That's what you do. Martin St. Louis did the same thing with the team that shall not be named for Cam Ward. There wasn't handshaking, but at the very least, they were out there, and that's showing class and respect. And then they got into the game, and the Canes were there to spoil the party. And the one play that we're talking about, it was the second goal of the game. And you worried maybe a little bit about Jackson Blake on this, who has been phenomenal on that top line. I mean, he is vibing with both Fishy and Jarvis. Like, they are all getting along very, very well. He cuts to the front of the net, gonna have a legitimate scoring opportunity, and someone decides that's just not acceptable.
But who?
And well, you know, Mr. Wilson comes flying in like this at the speed that he came in, and hitting him from behind was unbelievable. And he smashes him into his own goaltender. And that was beautiful to see.
If he'd have knocked out his own goaltender,
he did.
I never enjoy injuries. I don't like seeing guys get truly hurt, injured, I should say, because hurt and injured are different things.
Yeah.
But if he'd have hurt his goaltender, I probably would have chuckled.
And it was priceless, and scored a goal. So Wilson, who did get a goal, should have been credited with the assist. He had a goal and an assist in that one.
We got a continuation play. Like, oh my gosh. Like, that in and of itself was kind of a miracle.
It was a miracle indeed. And while we started in on that and we wanted to jump to the Rangers conversation, sometimes, you know what? The door opens to the storm cellar and our guests arrive. And this is what's going to allow us to address the most exciting aspect of the past week. And
pivot. We get to pivot.
Yes, our guest for Kames Prospects, Nick Bass.
Welcome back, Nick.
Nick, love to have you back. This Nikishin signed, sealed, not quite delivered yet. I mean, there's the governmental aspects with the visas that he's going to need to be able to play here. I'm not sure about the difficulty, how long that's going to take. I mean, you would assume that it's fast, it could be fast tracked, both Canadian and American, but you're the expert.
I'm not the expert on visas, though. That's a whole different.
but you're the expert on Nikishin. It's time for me to get quiet and let you kind of take the reins here, because this was amazing. This was amazing.
Yeah,
what we've been waiting for.
It's been a long time coming at this point. It's taken, he drafted 5 years ago at this point, and he's been playing KHL hockey for 6 years, and it to have it all come together was a definite big thing. It was cool, to say the least, though. It was one of the cooler things I've seen, and I'm just glad he's finally a Hurricanes player. I cannot wait to see him suit up in North America, whether that be for the Hurricanes in Canada or for the Chicago Wolves, because that would be the funniest thing I could ever think of.
I would as much as I want to see him with the Canes, I would like to see him against AHL level talent, because the Continental, right? The KHL, it's a step down from the NHL, but it's arguably the second best league in the world.
It's probably the best league outside of North America.
Right. And not that he would just dominate AHL talent, but to see him with guys like Nadeau, who just scored his 30th, I think, last night, the first under 20 since 2006 to do so. And only I forgot what it was. He was like the fourth or sixth all time. I mean, some ridiculous number, right? But as much as I want to see him with us, it would be equally interesting to see him with the Wolves, because I feel like they're fighting for that third spot, so they don't have to have that 3-game play-in. And I feel like he could help them tremendously. Like, I want the help, but we don't need the help for the next couple games, and they could use help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Tulsky was he's going to play in North America sometime this upcoming week. He just doesn't know where yet. But his talent level is going to keep it hard for him to not play an NHL game before the end of the Hurricane season, and that just speaks to the level of player he is. But a player like Nikishin going to the AHL is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but there's an image of it was a coughing baby versus a hydrogen bomb, and that's kind of the epitome of what putting Nikishin in the AHL would be, because he would just be about 2 levels above most players that are down there right now. So it would be really funny to see it happen. I'm just excited to see him play North American hockey sometime within the next week. That's going to make my day personally.
Maybe they could at least slot him in against the Ice Hogs.
I mean,
right? The Wolves' major rival. Like maybe he go in against the Hogs and score like 5 on his own. I don't know. That would be sweet.
Whenever he'll play, he'll dominate more than likely.
So I have a question for you. You do a tremendous amount of work, like mad respect for the amount of time you put in, not just on Nikishin, but all like Artemadov, all the prospects, right? We talked about them last time you were here.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of work. I don't think a lot of it's readily available. Like if you know, you know, but you also, it feels like you kind of have to know a little bit, like get to know some people. You have to have some connections and try and figure some stuff out. So you were preaching patience. Many of us are not patient people. And I think what happened here is like best case scenario, because you were like, look, his contract isn't over. We don't know if they're going to be released. Like, slow it down, right? Breathe, right? Watch pot doesn't boil. We got lucky and everything kind of went favorably. You know, SKA decided, yep, we'll terminate it. Like, you know, the Hurricanes signed him to an ELC almost immediately. Now it's just visa.
Yeah.
Is there a sense of loss on your end? Like, you're going to have to retire your Simpsons meme? Like, is there it's almost like writing like a master's or doctoral thesis, right? You do all this research and all this work, and then it's kind of over, and you're like, oh, like, do you feel like a sense of like, oh, like, what do I do now? Like, do I just switch to another player, or do I fall in Nikishin, or do you have any sense like that? I mean, because you've put a lot of effort into this, so we, as a fan base, as a show, we really appreciate it.
Well, first up, thank you for that. But no, funnily enough, the Simpsons meme is probably not going to go anywhere. I had a lot whenever I was talking about it with somebody. I immediately got, no, you can use it for a guy like Artemadov or any of the other younger guys that start breaking through, and we can just keep it going. So I was like, you know what? Sure, that sounds. It's a big part of that account's lore at this point is just Bart Simpson getting slightly irate when he has to say something. So it'll probably stick around, but there's a sense of loss because again, he's been the most hyped prospect in the system for the past. People have said since Skinner, and I get that, but I don't think Skinner had this level of hype coming where he came from, and maybe that's because he didn't have to wait, or he didn't wait 5 years to eventually make his jump to North America, even though he played North America, but it's a different level. So on one level, I do feel lost, but at the same point, I still get him for his entire rookie season because I still count rookies. So I have Blake still, but it definitely will be weird after next year not to have him, or maybe not able to talk about him a lot comparatively to now. So it'll definitely be weird, but with how the Canes have drafted in the past few seasons since then, I don't think I'm going to have to wait too long to find another guy that'll have some level of hype comparative to. And maybe that's Artemadov. Maybe that's his lab-made carbon copy Teamer Cole, who's playing on the same team. Maybe it's any amount of these other guys that they have out in the Eastern world between Sweden and Europe and Russia. Maybe it'll be somebody, but yeah, there's definitely a certain level, but I'm not too like upset or sad about it.
There was some concern about the ELC and so forth, and if we get him in now, it shortens the ELC for him. And Brad and I were talking about it to kind of start the whole show. And I mean, Seth Jarvis was out there on ELC, and he forced the team to keep him because he was just too good. And this is kind of the same situation, only Nikishin has way more hype than Seth Jarvis ever did, than anyone ever did, to be perfectly honest. When you see this and him joining the club, this is what I'm wondering. How do we get him in? Like Rod said, we have to get him into at least one game so he can play in the playoffs. Like that's one of the things that he said. How do you get him into the lineup smoothly? How would you do it?
So, well, first up on the entry level contract thing, it's slightly different because of his age. So, since he is 23 already, the CBA, which I am admittedly not very well versed, but I've had a lot of people correct me, and I've like had this stapled in my memory. But he only gets a 2-year, and because of his age, a year burns off no matter what. So next season, he's going in as just a 1-year deal. He's an RFA, can't be offer sheeted, anything like that. So, I mean, fitting him into the lineup right now, if you put him in, he's going to make your defensive group better because of the player he is. And, there might be an adjustment period with getting used to North American ice, just because that is a real thing. Now, I was proven wrong by Yoel Nystrom yesterday, who got used to North American ice in one game, but there still just is a little bit of a change. And realistically, you just give a guy a night off, you put Nikishin in, you give him what he deserves, hopefully, which would be he runs a power play because he's done it at a high level the past 3 years, and you let him help a little bit on the penalty kill, which he's done for the past 3 years. He doesn't need 25 minutes or more. I got to stress that. He doesn't need it at this point. He can do it. There's no point to, because you have good defensemen. But, I mean, you just give somebody the night off, let him have a showcase game, and then you run wild after that. And, I mean, realistically, he's good enough to play in the playoffs, but getting him in North American games before then is always just going to be appreciated.
See, if I randomly, Ray, real quick, if I randomly just pick a defenseman, totally random, Burns. Give Burns a night off and put Nikishin with Slavin.
You ever heard of an Iron Man streak, buddy?
You know what?
He's not going to get it. I love Brent Burns. I complain about Brent Burns because his play is not commensurate with the ice time he's getting. That doesn't mean I don't love the guy. And I'd love to see him break Phil Kessel's streak, but that means 2 more full seasons. And if he loses another step, then he's not much faster than I am, and that's not good.
I will say, even if for Burns, I don't think he would do it with the Hurricanes, because the Hurricanes have 2 guys on entry-level contracts that are, as of right now, in my eyes, they're better players right now, and they can be even better in the future, in Morrow and Nikishin. So realistically, it shouldn't be with the Hurricanes. So that's all I'm going to say there.
If he goes somewhere else, veteran leadership, play him limited minutes on a third pair, let him teach your young defenseman, I support that in 31 other markets.
He would be perfect going back to San Jose, in my eyes.
Yeah, he absolutely would, and be remembered as the hero that he was over there. I know you mentioned sitting someone. I had, I've been thinking about this a lot. And if he is able to get into an NHL game, I was thinking going 11-7 and pair Nikishin up with all of you guys. Have your regular defenders out there and pair them up with all of them, mostly with Orlov. I think having him out there with Orlov, another Russian, communications may be a little bit easier, but have him take Burns' spot with Slavin. Have him mix up with all of the different defenders and see how he fits in, because Rod's going to have a terrible time trying to figure out, first of all, when he's ready, but second of all, who's he going to sit in all of this? and we know it's not going to be Burns. So you got to think of the defenders who you're going to sit. And what do you think of going 11-7 in those final 2 games if they can get them in? Is that a reasonable idea to really see, or would you rather just throw them in like the baby into the pool and swim? What's your way to go?
Personally, I don't. So, from my experience and my very limited experience, hockey is a sport that doesn't require a ton of communication. Like, if you see right after the trade deadline or right before, like, I think right after, these guys are getting traded, and then within, 18 hours, they're playing for an entirely new team and playing in a game, and they're jumping in without knowing anything about the system, and they're just going. Realistically, you can do that. And I do understand to some level that if people are going to have reservations about, he's in interviews that he said his English isn't great. His English isn't really good at all. But at that same point, it's play. At the end of the day, it's how you play. And if he can understand the simplicities of the system, and he has. They say SKA plays a similar style to Carolina. I would love to see that personally, but if he can get the system quickly, then I don't really think it's that bad. And personally, I think I've said before, you could pair him. I think his perfect partner going into next season will probably be Chatfield, because of the way the range that Chatfield has would aid in Nikishin's game more than anything else. And Walker isn't even that bad of a partner for him either. I just would prefer Chatfield. But I mean, you can go 11-7. You can play him with your righties, except for Burns, because I really don't want to see that personally. And then you can see how he looks out there. But I mean, in my view, at least, you don't have to. So
Right.
it's up to them at the end of the day. And it's also up to the U.S. embassies in whatever country they have to go to if they give him the United States visa, and then eventually can they get him a Canadian visa in time.
Yeah.
And to your point, I agree. I see him as a direct Orlov replacement also with Chatfield, and let Scott Morrow play with Slavin, because I just feel like that's going to gel.
It should.
Yeah, then you have Ghost Walker on the back end. But one of the things I'm most excited to see in Nikishin is, for all of his offensive talent, right? He's just dominated the KHL. It's a new, defensemen typically in that system aren't like the aggressive, shooters and all that we see today. And he's put up just unbelievable numbers over there. All-time leading scoring by defensemen with 177 points. What makes me most excited is he has that aspect of his game, but he also hits people. And he's not, somebody mentioned like Chris Pronger. I said he's kind of like Makar light, but he's more physical, right? Not quite as good offensively, but better, I think, not just, maybe not better defensively, because Makar is still very good defensively, but he is more physical. Somebody said Pronger. I'm like, but he's not like, Pronger is just mean. I mean, Pronger just grew into a guy. He's just full of hate. I really am glad we smoked him in 06. Whereas Nikishin is like super happy, smile on his face, but he doesn't mind being physical, right? And if you watch any of his highlight reels, he's bringing back hip checks, which is one of the most exciting things to me in hockey. I love a good hip check. I like watching a guy fly through the air. I will say, I said this the other day, wear your neck guards, consider a visor or a full cage, because when he hits people, skates are up in the air, right? Because he is tossing bodies. But
that's why I want to pair him with Orlov. Can you imagine all the hip checks you see then?
Oh, that would be a beaut. But that's, to me, is he's balanced, right? He knows, he seems to know when to pinch. He has the offensive side, but he's not the defensive liability of other offensive-minded defensemen that we've had in the past.
Yeah. Well, first, because I unfortunately saw the Bissonnette tweet, because I try and keep my timeline very secure within the fact that I don't see those posts. But he's not Cale Makar, and that's setting him up for failure. The best way that I've described him in the past is, imagine Nicholas Kronwall with more of an offensive touch. that's kind of what you have. That's the closest I've been able to get. But personally, also, I hate comparisons. NHL comps are hard for me. They do not come easily. So, but that's what I've done in the past, and that's what I'm going to continue to stick to. But he's a guy that at his peak, and he like everything's working for him. He's an all-around defenseman that can probably give you upwards of 60 points, maybe more in a season, which the Hurricanes haven't had since probably Hamilton. And did he ever hit 60?
I believe Hamilton didn't he?
Okay.
Well,
I have no
Burns had the
idea.
record there for a year too. So
Yeah.
Oh, well,
So,
beats me.
that you know what I think there's two aspects here. One is the pinching that the D does all the time. Everyone. I mean, for crying out loud, Slavin yesterday was cherry picking and got a long pass. He was in behind everyone. It didn't quite work out, but I mean, even he got a chance to go in, and you see how hard they go in. That has to be very exciting for Nikishin, who likes to score. Like, he likes to be in on the action. And then and then as well, the hitting. One of the things that has always been difficult for me is I see a lot of our defenders peel off on hits where they have an opportunity to put a body on someone and they peel off, or it's a half-hearted hit or whatever. Those hits wear forwards down, and that's what you need, especially in the playoffs. Nothing dirty, nice and clean, but let them know you're there. And that's what it's going to be like when you get into our zone, or when you're trying to chase down a puck. You're going to get hit and it's not going to feel good. I mean, that's what and Cronwall, that's a great comparison. I don't think there's anyone who
it's better than mine.
Anyone who wouldn't want a Cronwall on their team, solid. And to be like that right off the top is just amazing.
Yeah.
Hopefully in 5 years, people aren't trying to compare Nikishin to somebody else. They're comparing up and comers to Nikishin, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
best case scenario,
the good part.
He sets he forges his own path, and guys are like, oh yeah, you know what you need? You need yourself a Seth Jarvis. You need yourself an Alexander Nikishin.
I think people are already doing Seth Jarvis comparisons for players. It's kind of fun.
It is fun. Look, yes. We've talked a lot about him. I'm not sure how much more can be said until we know he can jump in and get an opportunity to play one way or the other. But one thing I know you can speak about specifically is Black Aces. Now, the Black Aces for the playoffs, I'm not sure how many we're allowed to have up.
I believe it's 5 or 6, something around there.
And if you're picking Black Aces to come up and be ready to go, who do you take? Who are your guys that need to be a part of this and a part of the experience?
That's really tough, because as long as the Wolves are in the playoffs, I'm going to advocate for a lot of the younger guys staying with the Wolves, because that'll be their first taste of professional playoff hockey. Legault is different because Charles Alexis Legault, he's won a Frozen Four title. So it's a little bit different for him because he has some level of that experience. But guys like Robida, who only has it in Canadian juniors, a guy like Nadeau, who didn't go to the NCAA tournament and did BCHL playoffs, which is it's very different comparatively to the CHL, the Memorial Cup, and college playoffs. guys like Felix who didn't really get a ton of SHL playoff games. I'm going to advocate for those guys to stay with the Wolves because I want them to get that playoff experience and in those higher roles that they have. Because to me, it makes more sense so that, next year or 2 years down the line, whenever they're getting called up and getting ready to play in the playoffs, they have that level of experience. So realistically, if the Canes are fully healthy, you're going to have Morrow as an extra because I don't think they'll send him back down. You'll have Nikishin as an extra or some other defenseman as an extra. You'll have, I think, Tyson Yost to be the one coming out. At least I would hope Tyson Yost is the one coming out. No offense to him. But they have a lot of other talented guys on the roster. And there's probably one other forward that would come out or one other forward that they would have to look at taking out. So, I mean, there's 4 guys. And then if you need somebody, the Wolves have a surplus of defensemen currently. So you could always call up, Stillman or Smith. But forward-wise, the Wolves are depleted. They've gotten killed with injuries over the past month or two. Gleb is done for the year. Gunler hasn't played in at least a month, I think.
Wow.
They've had to sign a couple guys to ATOs. They've had to go through a lot. And forward-wise, I don't think you can call anybody up because you're going to start screwing up some things with how they're playing. And then if they don't get the experience, it's going to kind of be weird for next year. I think defensively, you can call up Smith or you can call up Stillman because you have a litany of guys, and they're still expecting to get one more eventually. And Dominic Badinka, he's expected to come to North America. It's just kind of a matter of when at this point. So personally, I don't think the Canes need any unless a top 6 guy gets hurt. Other than that, you're probably okay. And then for forwards and then defensemen, you can call up Stillman or Smith, and it won't really be that much of a problem.
Quick question, in case one of you knows off the top of your heads. If I'm counting right, the Canes, I think, have 23 men on the roster right now. So when Nikishin comes in, if he's going to play, somebody's got to go down. Just throwing that out.
I get my bet would probably just be Morrow, but again, I think they might just keep him up at this point.
Yeah.
So
something just to keep something in mind. If I'm counting, unless I'm forgetting somebody else who's been moved down, which I don't think I am, I think they're at 23. So right now, for the last 3 games, if they do bring Nikishin in, somebody's got to go down to Chicago.
And where is Chicago in the playoff aspect now? Again, because as you said, there's the experience that they can have being in the playoffs. I mean, there's guys that have. I mean, you think of Drury and you think of Kochetkov, who've won it all. That type of experience is great and really helps. Like, what are they looking at as far as the rest of the league goes? What are their chances?
I think the thing for them, they don't really lack goal scoring. I thought that was going to be an issue this year, but I am constantly proven wrong by a 19-year-old from the depths of Canada. And so I think offensively they're okay. They sometimes struggle 5-on-5 to get some offense going, but again, it's really not a lot of the time. Defensively, they're solid. They have some weak spots, but I think, Legault, Fensore, Sealy, Nystrom, they're all good. They're all very good players. And again, I thought Nystrom was going to take longer to adapt to North America. That dude was one of the better defensemen for the Wolves last night, and that was really impressive. The one thing that might hold them back is shaky goaltending. And it's kind of weird to say because when you look at AHL goalie stats, I think Spencer Martin's close to the top, 10, 15 in most of the counting stats. But he'll have a game like last night where he let in some very shaky goals, and the Wolves are in a deep hole within the first, 30 minutes of the game, and then you have to fight back. But I think the Wolves are a decent team. I think they can make noise in the playoffs, but it takes a lot going right. So a guy like Martin would have to be good, and then their offense would have to stay good at 5-on-5, and their power play, which has been a lot better recently, would have to continue to be good.
And to that point, real quick, Ray. So right now they sit in fourth in the Central. The top, I think it's 5 teams in the Central make it, but 4v5 plays a 3-game playoff to see who really is in the playoffs. And I don't know that the Wolves can catch Grand Rapids, who's sitting in third now.
I believe they still can, yeah.
Yeah, I think mathematically they can. I just don't think they can because they play, I think, 2 games against the Admirals, who are leading the Central. So
yeah, they play in a couple hours against the Admirals again. So
tough hill to climb. So on the good side is it should be Wolves and Ice Hogs if it is 4v5, which is a 3-game playoff, which you have a pretty good chance, I think, of winning that one. And then you're in, right? So it's...
The one worry I have is that the Ice Hogs are going to get a lot of players back here soon because Chicago's out and they're going to just start sending guys back down, which means guys like Korchinski, Lev Shanov, and a lot of their depth forwards are going to come back, which is going to be a problem. But I still think the Wolves should win that series if they get the 4-5 matchup.
Yeah. They'll definitely get some experience. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Win or lose.
Do we want to move into strictly Hurricanes talk now at this point? Is this...
Yeah, we can do that.
What are, Nick, what are we missing? Because Brad and I were old. We forget things. My name sometimes I just lose. We need to know everything else. What are we missing that you need to point out? Because you're all about the prospects. You're the expert, and we need to tap into that knowledge.
I already talked about Nadeau a little bit, and I don't think he'll hit the 33 that Voloshenko had in 06, but I mean, 30 goals as a U19 or U20 player is one of the rarest things you'll see. 6th guy since 1940 to do it, so that's always pretty cool. The big point I'm going to try and keep talking about is Joel Nystrom in North America. Just came over from Farjestad, and I thought the transition was going to take a little bit because, again, bigger ice to smaller ice. Sweden to Chicago, which is a change. And so, I mean, last night he was easily one of the Wolves' better defensemen. And the big thing that propped him up was his skating. His skating is unbelievable, and he looked like a really, really solid player for them. Other than that, for me going forward, it's a bunch of minor league Russian hockey, a ton of like Andrei Krutov and Alexander Pelovin and stuff like that. So I think we got the main part, and obviously the main one being Nikishin, which I have a feeling I'll be appearing on a few more places sometime over the next 2 weeks to talk about him. So, I think we covered most of the important stuff here.
I mean, when you drop those names, it makes me wonder about the logjam getting into the pros, which this team already has. And I'm just thinking there's so many great people, like the scouts are almost as good as you are in the knowledge that
they're much better than me. Don't
like honestly, like the scouting group that we have, we're picking the right guys all the time. And that kind of logjam could wear on players who really have the itch. I mean, NHL is where it's at. It's like Nikishin himself. I want to play in the best league in the world. I want to play against the best players. How do those guys all fit in?
Well, the nice part about them drafting from Europe a lot more is that there isn't really a rush with anything, and I do like that a lot. So take, for example, a guy like Artemonov, who just had one of the best U20 seasons in the KHL. I mean, he has the goal record, which is impressive. There's no real rush to get him over until maybe the Hurricanes and his representatives can see a path to the NHL. And it was, especially for a guy like Artemonov, there's still a lot of room to grow for him. So there's no real rush. And that's the nice part to me about drafting from Europe and Russia, is that you can take your time and slowly develop some of these guys. And as long as these teams, are thinking the same way, then you don't really have that issue. And I mean, you've seen it. The Canes have really moved away from drafting Canadian junior players where there might be a little bit more of a rush because you have to sign these guys before they turn 20. And I think right now the only guy in Canadian juniors, to my knowledge, is Justin Poirier. They don't have a single other player. And then they barely have guys in college at this point after Mercury gets moved. And you got two guys, and it's Michael Emerson and Jaden Perron. Perron just transferred. So with Russian guys and with European guys, there's just not a lot to have to do that. Goalies. Let me tell you what, Matt and I have talked about this a lot. If you're looking for a young goaltender to come in and get a job in the near future, I have some not great news for you. So in North America, they have one, or technically two prospects, even though I don't really count Yaniv Peretz anymore as a prospect since he's 25. He's fine. I think at his peak, he's an AHL starter. I don't think he's much more than that. Ruslan Hajayev is young and he is raw. He is still years away from being close to the NHL ready. And we've all seen that. There's a lot of good in his game, but also he's 20 and he's in a new league playing against men instead of in a league playing against guys that are under 20 years old. And then you look at everywhere else, you have Patrick Hamerla, who's playing third division Czech hockey this year. Jake Jakub didn't have the greatest year ever in Czech second league, and he did make his Czech top league debut, but even that didn't go great. And then outside of that, Nikita Kwap wasn't good. And then you have Igor Velmakin, who hasn't played a full game since January. It's been 3 months, actually, since his last full game. So there's a lot of potential. I think a guy like Velmakin or a guy like Hajayev are good potential guys for the future. The issue is, outside of those two, you don't really have anything whatsoever. And expect in the draft for the Hurricanes to take at least one, if not more than one goalie, because their cupboard is very dry at this point. The mother hasn't gone to the grocery store in about a week and a half.
Right.
Which is unusual for the Canes. Like, that's one of the things they get praised for, right? Is having the picks and the prospects there, how deep the talent pool is. I mean, we kind of have a log jam already with guys like I would like to see get a shot like Suzuki and some of those others, and there's just not space for them, on the Hurricanes because of how well how much we've got out of guys like Jankowski and Roslovic and some of those others.
Yeah.
But we've kind of forget about the goalies, right? Because it's our two NHL goalies, and then there's a significant drop. And then, like you said, we have, a couple of names out there, but they're not close. So how do we fill in the gap, and what do we do? Because with Anderson's contract being up at the end of this year, who's going to be out there? Who's going to be available? Kochetkov is signed. The question becomes, how much do you trust him? Is he the guy, or does he need to be part of a duo? And then even if that's settled, thinking AHL, there's a lot. I mean, I feel like they need to find some stopgap solutions in the near term, in addition to planning long term. I really hope they draft a couple of goalies, even if they take some late flyers, because the Hurricanes have gotten really lucky on some of those third, fourth, fifth round picks in general. If we can get a goalie to turn out down there, that would be fantastic. I mean, Nikishin, right? Picked 69th overall.
Nick,
Yeah.
Nick,
He hasn't proven anything yet, but
yeah,
the buzz is there, right?
So we're talking about the logjam, and Brad brings up, solutions and so forth. Nick, I'm going to make you Eric Tulsky.
Oh, God.
No. I mean,
Nick has much better hair. Sorry, Eric.
Oh, no. That man, he's got flow. I can't do that right now.
I'm going to make you Eric Tulski. Which of the prospects that we have would be the best options to add into trade to pick up the players that we might need, the stars that we might be able to get, perhaps a goaltender in there somewhere without messing up the future in the lineup? Who would you deal that has the cachet that could, be a big interest to the other teams?
I'm gonna be real. I never like this question because it's always a hard one for me to answer because I sometimes have I'm always in a weird spot because not many people want to hear negative things. They just want to hear positive things, and I try and keep the prospect account and to a certain extent myself to a more positive mindset. But it is a fair question to ask. The thing is with a lot of the Hurricanes prospects right now, you either have the high end, which is Nikishin, who's an NHL guy, Morrow, who's an NHL guy, Nadeau, who's an NHL guy next year. And then on the other hand, you have, Ryan Suzuki, who's probably an NHL guy, if anywhere but the Hurricane system. Dominic Fensore, who's probably an NHL guy anywhere not in the Hurricane system. So it's kind of tough to answer that. But and like guys like Suzuki and Fensore don't have a ton of value outside of the Canes system because Suzuki's 23 and any team would basically just be taking a flyer on a former first round pick. And then Fensore, he's a great player. He's a great 200-foot player, but everybody's going to circle the 5'9" or 5'8", whatever he is, and be like, well, no, he sucks, even though he doesn't. So it's rough. My gut tells me any of those, just Suzuki or Fensore, but everybody has a price. So it's not that I personally, I just wouldn't want to see their higher end guys traded because I think they're probably close to NHL ready and they're not long-term bets that won't pay off for another 2 or 3 years. These guys are, players that can be ready right now. And that also goes for Felix Unger-Sorum, who people are going to point out he's having a weird or a bad first year in North America. And I would heavily disagree because if I'm not mistaken, he is the youngest player that has played over however many games in the AHL. He's just so young. And honestly, he still needs to find time to go eat Chicago's best food and put on a little weight because, dear God, he's a stick. But I would just go Suzuki or Fensore just because they're NHL guys outside of the Hurricane system.
And you mentioned being worried about speaking about them negatively in that context. I've never believed that that's a negative statement. It's adding them into a trade is like the Natchez deal, where dealing him to Colorado gave him a better chance to play the kind of hockey that he wants to play. And there's going to be guys that look at everyone in every lineup and say, there's a guy that would fit in perfectly. There's teams rebuilding all over the place. And when there's a logjam like there is for Carolina, I mean, how long have you and I, Brad, talked about getting Suzuki in? I mean, and just couldn't get the opportunity to fit, whether it's through injury or just, again, logjam. I think it's a positive thing because it's positive for their careers. And so we like to see people succeed and get the opportunities that they deserve because all of these great players have the same dream, and that rookie lap is what they want, there's nothing quite like it. So
to your point, Ray, that's where like the team and the player sometimes are diametrically opposed. You don't want to give up somebody like Suzuki, who you know can be an NHL guy, or at least you think can be an NHL guy. Because what if you need him? Like, what if something comes up, you can trade away NHL talent, get something good, whatever. But at the same time, if you're the player and you're like, I'm just stuck behind, there's 3 guys ahead of me, like I want to play, right? So there has to be balance, and that's where I think GMs, if I was a GM, that's where I would lose sleep. Less so about some of the negotiation stuff, but like, do I want to give this person an opportunity to have a good career? Like shipping Nate just out. Like I want him to succeed. We're going to send him somewhere that makes sense for him, but also taking care of the needs that I have, right? Because my commitment is to the team, and that's got to be a tough balance for those guys. I mean, I think the Canes have handled it admirably, but I can see where, if you're Suzuki and you are in Chicago next year all year and you're not the first call up, got to be frustrating, and then frustration turns into, are you going to play as well? You know what I mean? It's there's a balance there, and they're, we say they're professionals, but particularly for some of these guys, you can say a 22, 23-year-old's an adult. As a almost 50-year-old guy, 23-year-old me still didn't have a lot of the life experience and things that I needed, right? So there's still levels of, I don't want to call it immaturity there, but you still don't know what you haven't learned yet, right? So I could see where guys like that could get frustrated, or because what you don't want is a guy to start pouting and become like a locker room cancer and anything like that. So I just wanted to throw it out there. It kind of works on both sides, but you got to find hopefully a deal that, because you need the pieces in place for injuries and stuff, right? You want that call up that if the AHL team's not good, we know how that affects the NHL club. See last year. So that balancing act is what would make my, when they asked Seth Jarvis, about being a GM, I would have the same answer that we can't, this is a family show. We can't give that answer.
Yeah.
But I would have the same. I mean, I know that's not for me. That's, as much as I like to do it from behind a microphone in my chair or on social media, the real responsibility, I would have a hard time with the personal side of things.
And the point that Nick drove home very accurately is the bare cupboard in the goaltender aspect. I mean, we've got a plethora of great players. If there's a goaltending, although everyone wants to hold on to their goaltenders, so that might be difficult, but is that the way to go to get the goaltender that we need? I don't know. You know what? It's, a good problem to have. That's the other thing, knowing how strong the team can be. Let's swing into the games there. We started actually talking about the Caps game. Let's jump into yesterday's game and talk about my schadenfreude growing from just the team that shall not be named to being the team that put the final nail in the Rangers' coffin, and how great the team looked without KK, without Hall, without Ghost. They were amazing. Even when they fell asleep for about 5 minutes in the third, they looked fantastic. And Stankoven proved again to me, first of all, Carrier's back and got a point in it with a beautiful pass to the game-winning goal. Jankowski again. All he does is score, which is amazing considering where he's at. Let's break down that game, because that was sure something to enjoy. If only to see all the Carey fans leaving sad. You know what I mean? Like, that was That was just unbelievable. What did you think, Brad?
So I bet on Chatfield to get the first goal. So I appreciate Jalen taking the family out for dinner tonight on Jalen Chatfield. So that's one. So those dollar bets, man. I'm not much of a gambler, but a dollar, first goal, throw a dollar out there 82 times a year. I'm up for the year, so I must be getting just enough right. Seth Jarvis. It may. I don't think this is a hot take. I don't even know if this is debatable. Seth Jarvis is your best player right now. My gosh, he had 2 assists, I think, yesterday. He had a goal. He's forechecking. He's playing defense. He's doing everything you could want. And then you mentioned Stakeoven, who the other night I was just like, his engine never quits. I was thinking, okay, when Carrier comes back, you slot Carrier back into the stall line, and then you have that mega shutdown line. But Stankoven gives that line energy, surprisingly, right? Like, I mean, he's doing all the things that Carrier could do, but he also can put, the puck in the net. So then that frees you up, and then Carrier can move the fourth line. I don't envy Rod Brind'Amour right now, because when Nikishin comes over, if they're going to put him in, be it the last couple of games, the playoffs, however it shakes out, KK's back, Hall is in. You have some really tough decisions on who plays and who doesn't. Like, I would sit Jost, but not for any like, he's playing really well. Like, he's doing everything asked of him. I just don't think he's as good as who could replace it. And that's hard. You know what I mean? That's one of those, you've done everything we've asked of you, but there's somebody that we think can give us that little bit extra edge, and it's the playoffs, and we need every competitive advantage we can get. So right now, I don't feel like there's anybody. I think for the most part, there's not anybody who's not playing really well.
Nick, I'm with all of the hockey that you watch everywhere. I don't know where you fit the time in to even watch the pro games. Perhaps you are as smart as Eric Tulsky and you figured out a way to expand 36 hours into 24. Like, you've got some space-time continuum that you are able to even just do all the minor stuff, like to watch the leagues everywhere. Do you even how do you get a chance to even watch the pro games? That's the first thing, because you have just so much knowledge on everything going everywhere else. What are you thinking about how this game went yesterday?
Yesterday was lucky for me in the sense that there was no other games at 3:00, and I was already I don't have any schoolwork due, so I had the opportunity to just kind of sit down and watch this game. And so I try my hardest to watch the NHL team, but a lot of the times I just have other things like going on or I got to do. So I try and watch them every once in a while, but specifically for the younger guys, it's easy for me because I can still cover Stankoven because he's a rookie, which catches me off guard from time to time. But Stankoven being the main piece in that Rantanen deal that came back, besides the 2 first-round picks, is exceptional work, because Stankoven is one of the best young players in the NHL, in my view. He doesn't get a lot of the same respect as guys like, Michkov or Bedard or Celebrini or Will Smith, or eventually what Ivan Demidov will get. But the way that he plays the game is very, and I get to use a fun little thing I talked about earlier, but he's kind of like Seth Jarvis light, in the sense that he forechecks really well. He's very sound defensively. He has had horrible puck luck this year, and that's coming from a lot of Dallas Stars fans, is that he was getting in the right spots and he was getting open. The puck just would not go in. When that changes, though, he's a different player, and he's going to be one of your most fun top 9 players, if not top 6. And it's incredible that they got him back, because he's just 20. I think he's a young 22, and he just turned 22 maybe a month ago. So Stankoven's sick, and I also get to watch Jackson Blake a lot, and that's always one of my great joys because he's kind of just the same player. He's effective for checking. He's earned all of his ice time that he's gotten this year, and excuse me, he's very adept at taking your puck. He's his takeaways are one of his best traits. He steals it a lot, and board battles he's good. So it's kind of fun watching these younger guys who aren't 6 foot, who just attack the game in a different way, and they're much more aggressive. They're much more ferocious. Their tenacity is just more noticeable, but they don't use it physically. They just use it in how they play the game, and it just works out for them so well. So I'm a big fan of that. And that actually leads me into something I really did want to talk about because it was about Nadeau. But yesterday I was posting about Nadeau hitting 30 goals and being one of the first guys to hit 30 goals. And somebody in my replies was going, yeah, it's great. Where does he fit? Because he's not a fourth line player. And I go, he's not a fourth line player. Congratulations, you figured it out. And their point was, I guess, that the Canes don't need another smaller guy. And I hate that line of thinking because, for one, Seth Jarvis, if I'm not mistaken, is not 6 feet tall. He's 5'11", if my knowledge is correct. Jackson Blake, one of the Canes' better players over the past calendar month, is 5'11". Logan Stankoven, one of their better young players, or just better players on the team who's played at a very good rate since getting traded, he's 5'8". A lot of their like best players are smaller. They're not big because the league has moved away from it being a physical. You got to be 6'3" and you got to hit the crap out of everybody you see. No, it's gone in a much more skillful direction. Skill starts to triumph brawn, and obviously Nadeau is not a fourth line player. If you put Nadeau on the fourth line, that is a waste of his talent. So I think there just needs to be some level of thinking going on when you start talking about smaller players because, yeah, they can be small, but they use the size in such a way to where it's not a disadvantage. It becomes an advantage. So I just wanted to get that out there because that bothered me a lot yesterday, and it just kept festering on my mind.
I'm so with you, Nick. I'm going to give you some stats. You tell me who the player is. All right, this is for both of you. 6-time All-Star. 2 Art Ross trophies for leading point scorer. A Lester B. Pearson, a Hart MVP trophy, Stanley Cup champion. 3 Lady Bangs Hockey Hall of Fame inductee. That's a heck of a career.
I wanted to say Martin St. Louis.
That was going to be my guess with St. Louis.
5'8". They say 182 pounds. That's a lie. He's like 168. Martin St. Louis. In some ways changed the game for the guys you're talking about, Nick, because I agree with you. Do you need the Svechnikov big power forward who can move people around? It is super helpful. Yes, you need some of those, but your goal scorers don't have to be those guys. And if you look at guys like Jarvis and Blake and Stankoven, their size allows them to make space. Like you said, they're not going out there hitting guys, but they're fast and they're quick and they're agile, and their agility and their size mean that they find areas of the ice that are open for them that are not open to a Svechnikov, that are not open to a Zdeno Chara of a few years ago, right? And as we move away from the goonery into more skillful hockey, these guys not only can thrive, but Martin St. Louis helped pave the way for this type of player to absolutely dominate this league if they are willing to, I don't want to say pay the price even, but if they're willing to have a game, if they're willing to play the game in the way that Jarvis and Blake play the game, very successful careers. So I agree. Do I want the Canes to have 12 guys under 6 feet? No, not necessarily.
No. Yeah, there has to be
one
a
per
healthy
line.
mix.
Yeah, if you have 4 of those guys, 1 per line, you have 5 of those guys, and you couple them with the right partners, and you understand that the 3-man line itself is a team in and of itself, and they each have their own roles, and you find the right people for the right roles, you will be wildly successful. And Martin St. Louis is the epitome of what these guys can be.
Two things, and Nick, you brought him up. The one thing about Stankoven that impresses me probably the most, aside from his quickness, because there's a difference between fast and quick. And when he's on that line, he's like super quick. If he sees the opportunity to get to that puck, he will get there. But the thing that impresses me the most is his willingness to go to the front of the net and take away the eyes of the goaltender and take the punishment that he does. Like, he gets crushed in there at times, and he's in there for more. Like, thank you, sir. Can I have another? Like, that is just super tough. I love that. The second, in Jackson Blake, and you talked about takeaways, what he impresses me with is his ability to stick handle out of a closet. Like, he is so shifty and so, like, he's got that hockey awareness where he sees the whole ice like he's got eyes in the back of his head. And he's so shifty. Guy, like, he's made people look ridiculous out there trying to cover him. And that just fits in with Fishy and Jarvie so well. Like, between the three of them, this is the best line combination that we've seen at the top line, which, Rod, okay, yes, we don't have lines, but they have looked the best. And Blake on the power play is also great because he can move, and there's so many good things about him. And I have to admit, I'm owning this. I questioned him going up to the top line. I was curious to know how it was all going to work out. And now that I see it and see the results, we know why Rod knows more than anything that I could ever, because that was his move. And why change such a good thing? Like, Jackson Blake is something else. Like, again, a friggin' closet he can get out of and stick handle with the puck. Like, it's unbelievable.
And real quick, the flip side of what we're talking about. One of my favorite Hurricanes from a personal standpoint, Marek Malik. Malik was a beauty. For those of you who he was before your time, go find. There's a highlight of him scoring maybe the best shootout goal of all time. I love it.
Harry.
Merrick was 6'6" and listed at 240, and he was like 6'7", 250, 260. He got a lot of criticism because people said, well, he doesn't skate hard. He is skating hard. He's 6'6". He's like Charit. When he skates big strides, he doesn't look like he's doing much, but he is. Merrick hated hitting people. I mean, it was just who he was. He just wasn't a body guy. So just because you're 6'6", 250 doesn't mean you're a Trouba or a Gudis or you're not out there just wrecking people, right? It's so to put these players in boxes. Oh, he's too small. Oh, he's big. He'll be physical. Like, that's just not how hockey really works, unfortunately. Well, or actually, fortunately, because the 6'6", 250 guy who doesn't hit people has a role, but that role is not knocking guys around. Seth Jarvis hits more guys than Merrick did, and he's, not quite a foot shorter, but he's significantly shorter. So the fact that these guys are small doesn't make them incapable of hitting, incapable of playing the body. I do think the Canes need to hit more, generally speaking, but not like Tom Wilson trying to knock guys out of the game. But finish your checks. Remind them it's the playoffs and you have the puck. And I, put a shoulder into you. And I just want when the game is over and you're looking over, you're in the locker room and you're looking at the bruises, just remember that was me. And I'm going to be there every time that you get the puck on your stick, right? So, yeah, I think putting players into these boxes that small guys aren't, you need to be big and powerful to score in the NHL is very 2000s thinking. I mean, very Broadway bullies, very, that type of thinking. It's just not the same game anymore.
So we've been talking about the Rangers game and sending them home crying, which again, the Schadenfreude just, it's getting close. It's getting close to the team that shall not be named. But something that really stuck with us was the interview PK Subban had with Seth Jarvis. And on Thursday night, they went to PK and said, we got 8 teams lined up for the playoffs and so forth. Rank them. And he put Carolina in 8th, which was ridiculous. There's yes, you played with the Devils. Okay. Don't polish apples for them. I mean, let's be honest. And that's what he was doing, looking to get people clicking and talking about him rather than actually using his intelligence. And he tries to put it on Seth. I think if he was trying to help New Jersey, he's going to talk to Seth, who speaks off the cuff, and try to get that, newspaper comment that you stick up on your wall. When he's already given it to the Canes, he's already given them the little thing to think of, and now he wants Seth to get involved. And Jarvie was so deft with the way he phrased it back to PK. I'm not answering that question. And his words were, I can't tell you what I really think right now, which was a brilliant deflection on this. What did you think? What did you guys think of the whole PK Subban thing and what he's doing? I mean, this is, to me, he's embarrassing himself. I didn't mind him as a player aside from the slew foot thing that he did forever. And he's a good person. I mean, he funded an entire hospital in Montreal. There are good things about him. But what kind of comment is that? And trying to get Seth to give him something back. Tell me why I'm wrong. You don't need Seth to tell you. Everyone can tell you why he's wrong. What did you guys think of that interview?
At least for me, it's just what ESPN content has kind of come to. It's more based on they want to get stuff for clicks and reactions more than actual analysis more than anything else. So that's always been my thing, is that they'd rather have a segment go viral for somebody saying something stupid and classifying it as a hot take rather than have actual analysis and anything leading up to it. So I just thought that's what it was. That's about it. And from my view, he's trying to get a reaction. And that's what he did. He got a reaction, all right.
Absolutely. And when it surprised me, Messier, who everyone knows, I mean, I always think of him first as an Oiler as opposed to a New York Ranger.
I mean, once the Rangers head coaching job, he's been advocating for it on public television.
Yeah.
I like to think of him as a Canuck when he brought down their franchise.
Well, that's true too. But
That's my favorite
he
version of Mark
was
Messier.
he was the guy that was always like in the Rangers game as analysis. He was the one talking about the Canes, like looking over at the other guys. What are you talking about? Are you even watching this game and the domination? And the Canes have something here. Brad, I know it was funny. And another one of the few things that we can share about the texts that we have during the game, of which there are hundreds. Yeah, I muted when I saw who it was. Both
As soon as I
PK
saw
and
Messier and Subban, I muted. I was like, I can't. Like it used to be. I'm with you. Like PK Subban seems like an awesome dude, and I liked him as a player. Like I actually used to like listen to his trash talk when they on like the NHL mic'd up videos. Like he actually is a pretty good trash talker. Didn't like the sleuth foot. Didn't like the way he played necessarily. But I think Nick hit it best just a minute ago. Because earlier I was saying when you and I were just talking, like he was just doing this for clicks. But I think Nick is right. I think that's become ESPN's whole gimmick is you can pay guys, you can find the right people to give you honest, in-depth, good analysis, which is difficult, or you hire famous guys who have interesting personalities who will just talk smack. And you know what I mean? And ESPN, I have not been a loyal ESPN watcher for literally decades when they started putting World Poker Tour over hockey, before they lost the contract last time. But for me, one of the people we know on Blue Sky, CPT Chrissy, I don't know if it's Captain Chrissy, but on Blue Sky Social, had the best take, and said, I think it's funny that PK is touting Natchez as an elite player, because this was the night before or 2 nights before during the Caps game when he was talking about how he was taking Jersey over the Canes, and he's like, well, they don't have Rantanen and they don't have Natchez, and Chrissy nails it. When Natchez was here, he was never an elite player. At the start of the season, they were like, oh, wow, Natchez is playing really great. Natchez is playing good. But when before that were they like, wow, Natchez is a top talent in the league? They didn't. And then when he goes to Colorado, now he's a top talent, even though he was playing better points per game and all as a Hurricane.
yeah,
He left the Canes at 1.41, I think, points per game, went to Colorado and is averaging less than a point per game. Now he's pretty close, but he is also playing with Nathan McKinnon. And that's not a knock on Natchez at all. It's simply the narrative that's being told is not backed up by anything, right? It's simply fantasy storytelling in whatever direction people want to take it anecdotally. There's no stats to back it up. And then saying, well, they don't have Rantanen. What did Rantanen do in his time here? Bring the team down? I mean,
yeah.
he didn't make things better. I think that's fair to say, right? At no point was the team better with Rantanen. And now you have Stankoven and Jakowski and Hall who are all contributing. So I think the narrative just is, what can we say to get people to engage? Is, ESPN used to be the quote unquote worldwide leader in sports, right? And now I agree. I think it's just, engagement farming, trying to prop up ad revenues and be beholden to shareholders and those things. And it's not about the sport. There's TNT does it better,
Yeah.
I have problems with all the broadcast because I'm just that person.
Yeah.
But some folks do it much better than others. And that Messier Subban combo is just never for me. It's,
Well,
two guys who should be able to talk intelligently about hockey, and they generally don't.
the combination of both Natchez and Rantanen in the same conversation, there is a fact that landing the quote unquote superstar has been difficult. But remember, like Natchez, if you've watched him, can have a great regular season and disappear in the playoffs. And we've seen it. We've lived it. He started up with us And so where does he go in the playoffs? Like, Colorado, get ready, because I don't know if he's going to show up there. I just don't. And Rantanen, I wanted that to work out. I really wanted it to work out, because I thought with the Finns on there could be a chemistry, there could be whatever. He played at maybe 20% of his capability. He was nowhere close to the type of player that the reputation that he earned. And when the comment comes that he's told Rod, there were 4 places I wanted to be, and this isn't one of them. Now you know why he looked the way he did. The day before he was traded, he was less than invisible. He was terrible. Like, he was visible all right in how bad he played. And to combine those two together as the reason why, forget about it. Forget about it. Now, the one place that perhaps the Devils have the advantage is in net. Markstrom, had a chance to see him a lot here in Calgary. I've seen the way he can play, and he can be elite. Like, he can be elite. And Jake Allen has stolen games as well, too. So you give them a slight advantage. But Nick, I'm going to ask you, we're headed into the final few games, and they've been flipping back and forth between Freddie and Piotr, which is great. I mean, I think that's a way to keep everyone healthy. But who do you start on opening night? Who's the guy that you pick number 1? Or do you continue flipping back and forth and doing something that I don't think any team has ever done, ever?
My answer is Freddie. It's unquestionably Freddie. I love PK. He's been wildly inconsistent over the last month, and Freddie has been a pillar of consistency over the last month. My answer is Fred.
Brad, what do you think here? Because I happen to agree wholeheartedly. And this is not hate for PK. It's not.
I mean,
throws his stick all the time, and he's wanders a little bit, and you can tell in the first 30 seconds of any game whether he's locked in or not. And yesterday, that was the game. You could see in that first 5 minutes that he was locked in. And doing the games before, he was trying to play the puck more than the defenseman. It was crazy. Brad, where are you at?
Since March 1, they both played 10 games. Freddie's got a 918 and 2.09. PK's got an 884 with 281. And some of those are not his fault, don't get me wrong, but I don't think you can't start Frederik Andersen. He's starting today against his former team with the Leafs. I think you start him in the playoffs and go from there, because,
I hear you. So, Brad, something jumps up to me, and we're talking about goaltenders, and something that I had to absolutely get in, and this is going to be, Nick is not nearly old enough to know about the way he was as a goaltender back in the day, but we lost Greg Millen, who had passed away this week, and called a great game and so forth. But he has a very interesting history with this franchise. He was signed as a free agent away from Pittsburgh, but the way he was signed away will make you laugh greatly. He was in negotiations and wanted to stay with Pittsburgh, made it clear that he wanted to stay with Pittsburgh. And the talks went on for a while and so forth until they weren't going anywhere. They couldn't figure it out. And so he says, okay, I'm going to sign on with Hartford. I'm going to sign on with the Hartford Whalers and see what happens. He was trying to do a leverage move, so to speak. And the time goes on and the time goes on. And suddenly the deadline is passed and Pittsburgh hasn't responded. So he says, all right, I'm going to be at Hartford. The reason why Pittsburgh didn't respond, Bastian, I believe, was the owner at the time. He was away on a golf holiday and was unaware of what was going on. And that's how they lost Greg Millen, through a golf holiday by the owner. So that's the first thing. The second thing about the history here, Greg Millen was great. He played great with Pittsburgh. Hartford, lean years when he was in net. And he did his best to try to haul them, further on, but just couldn't do it. And Hartford made a trade for one of the most well-known Hartford Whaler goaltenders ever, Mike Liut. Mike Liut came over in the trade for Greg Millen, which was unbelievable. When I think of Whaler goaltenders, I didn't think of Millen. I thought of Mike Liut first. So that was a huge deal and part of the history of this franchise. You know how I feel about it. Some people laugh and say, Raymond, this is Carolina. It's not Hartford. Sorry, this is the same franchise. That's the way it will always be with me. And Greg Millen, infamous for being a prankster. Infamous. I'll share a story. He loved in the press boxes to pick up the coffee cups and take a pin and poke holes in the bottom of the coffee cup. And he'd poke a bunch of holes in and so forth and set them all back together. And the guy's coming over for a coffee, getting ready to go. They fill up the cup and all of this coffee is coming out and spilling everywhere. I mean, he was a prankster. Like, you hear about the players that pull pranks on each other, and some of them are beauties today. I think they learned from Greg Millen. And he was a part of this franchise's history, and I felt it really important that I give him the props he deserves. Hope he rests in peace. Feel for his family, and broadcasting in hockey lost a great one. Lost a really, really good, enjoyable. We talked about the guys previously who are terrible at broadcasting. He was not. He was one of the good ones. So I had to get that out there. And I'm sorry, guys. I know that comes out of left field. It's not what we were set up to talk about, but I needed to get it out there because it ties to this franchise. So thank you.
All good, man. Yeah. And all respect to him. I mean, that's, it's always sad to lose one of the good ones, right?
We've had a really good show. It's been great. And the reason why it's great is because we have Canes prospect Nick Bass with us, a wealth of knowledge that, I mean, you shared the good and the bad. That's amazing. Like you shared the good and stuff, and then remind us where the heck's the goaltenders? Mom hasn't been shopping, and the cupboards are bare. Like that is the type of honesty you want to hear. So you certainly are not an apple polisher, and I appreciate that. I love the facts. I love how you fit 36 hours of hockey from all over the world into 24 hours. I still think you're smart because you know what? Eric hasn't made a space-time continuum thing that you've been able to do. Thank you so much for joining us, Nick. Always a pleasure to have you in here.
Yep,
I
thanks for hopping
hope
on.
that you will keep coming back to us because we need to know what our future looks like, and you're the expert, man. You're the expert.
I try my hardest there, and yeah, I'll gladly come back. Summer's gonna be real busy, so just gotta give me a time and a place, and I'll see what I can do.
Beautiful.
It's outstanding. Beautiful.
3 games this week, Ray. The final 3 games regular season. Maple Leafs today at 5:00. Don't miss it.
Yep.
Then, knock on wood, Montreal on Wednesday, Ottawa on Thursday. Let's hope for the best. I'm not going to say it out loud and try and jinx it, but maybe we see a slightly different lineup for those 2 games. If not, hopefully we'll get to see that in Chicago. And then last thing, the Habs can clinch a playoff spot. They need 2 points. Out west, the Wild and Blues are leading the Flames. The Blues need 2 points in some manner. The Wild need 1. I don't think any of those teams can clinch today, although the Flames play. So if the Flames were to lose in regulation today, they are out.
Wow. Things are getting tight. You love the last couple of weeks of, everyone playing playoff hockey for the last couple of weeks before the playoffs actually get started. It's going to be exciting to see the matchups and so forth. I'm still, very excited to see Dallas play Colorado. That's going to
I hope Nate just goes off. I hope Nate just has the playoff series of a lifetime.
Yeah, that would be wonderful to see. That's it. That's it for the show, except for one very, very important thing that we never forget. Well, I used to forget it a lot, but it's drilled in. Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.